Every time I'm around the water, my love for fish just swells. And honestly, it's a perfect environment at the cottage for anything seafood. And I'm about to take cedar plank salmon, put it in a time machine, and send it into the future. And where we're going, we don't need roads. Maple soya miso marinated salmon with truffle charred broccolini. It's got the 3 F's: fish, fun, and food. That should be a t-shirt. And this is a great cut of salmon. This is a center cut Atlantic salmon fillet, and it's so beautiful. It's got great color. It's really nice and thick, so it'll hold up on the barbecue on a cedar plank. And there's lots of fat in the belly and fat through the loin, which keeps the fish really nice and juicy. And the great thing about salmon is it loves flavor. So I'm not gonna shy away from the flavor. Let's make a marinade. First thing that's gonna go in is a little bit of miso paste. This stuff is pretty gnarly. It's fermented soybeans, and it's got umami, it's got bounce, it's got body, and it's got wow factor. So that's the first thing going into the pan. And then this is all about sweet and salt. So it's like a heavy marinade and almost like a quick brine marinade. So there's lots of sugar in it and lots of salt. So to start the sugar, a big shot of maple syrup and a little golden sugar, some sweet sugar brown. It's really great with the maple because it has a bit of kick of molasses in it, so it's really nice and sweet, but when it cooks down, it hits the salmon and goes on the barbecue, it gets really, really fun. And then for the salty part, a lot of soy sauce and sesame oil. Sesame oil is delicious with the brown sugar and the miso, but you don't want too much sesame oil in it because it's really big and flavorful. And then a nice shot of soy sauce. Okay, that's gonna be intense. It's gonna be super salty and super sugary. And then there's one herb I'm putting in here, and it's anise seed. I love the licorice flavor of the anise seed, and anise and soya and maple and miso. It all makes sense. Just let it cook down a little bit, get nice and warm, get the sugars and the maple and the miso to give each other a little hug. Man, it smells so good already. Okay, so let it just cook down, let the brown sugar melt, and let's make a truffle vinaigrette. You might think to yourself right now, dude, you're gonna put truffle with salmon and soya. It works with the maple and the miso. Truffle, that big robust flavor, is super delicious. So the vinaigrette is super simple. I like to start with some fresh shallots. You could use a red onion if you want, but I love that young onion flavor of a shallot. That can go right into the bowl. And I keep the pieces of the shallot quite big because something really cool happens when you char the broccolini, and those little pieces of onion in the vinaigrette hit the barbecue. It's just the most wonderful flavor, and it really gives a little bit of sweetness and a little bit of kick to the dressing. So a little sugar, because there's a lot of vinegar in it. I'm just gonna use a drop of honey, salt, pepper. There's a lot of vinegars that you could use, red wine, cherry vinegar, but I have white wine vinegar because I'm using it, and that's all that's at the cottage right now. That's what I love about the cottage. You just use what's lying around, and things can get pretty fun. And some beautiful truffle oil. This stuff is really pungent. It's almost like, wow, like super intense mushroom. If you've never had truffle, it's really good. So just slowly put the truffle in there, mix it around, and with the vinegar, it's pretty wild. It's a really big flavor, and I love when it's like half and half. Not a lot of vinaigrettes are half and half, but it's half acid, half truffle oil, broccoli, char marks, fish. Totally makes sense. It'll rock your head. So for the broccoli, I just pour it on, and then it's ready for the barbecue. That smell is absolutely wild. So you might be thinking to yourself right now, oh, excuse me, I've got a whisk down. So you might be thinking to yourself, you're gonna put hot marinade on the salmon. I'm not, and because it's so intense with all of the sugar and all of the saltiness, there's water in the recipe, but in the form of ice. So if you put a bit of ice in there, it cools it down. It's not so intense. It'll marinate almost instantly, and it kind of calms everything down. But when it cooks on the salmon, all those sugars kind of cling to the fish. On the cedar plank salmon, you get a bit of smoke, and the top of the fish will look nice and shalaka-laka ribraka. wait a second. And the sugars on the top of the salmon will shellac. It'll be really nice and sticky. So here's the deal. Get a plastic bag, pour the marinade in. And it's nice and cool with the ice in there, and then you can put the fish right into the bag. That is just amazing. Let it sit in the bag. The longer the better. You can do this overnight, but at least a couple of hours, and let all of that flavor really soak into the fish, which gives me a little bit of time to clean up and enjoy this cottage. Okay, sweet. Okay, so for the cedar plank salmon, I took it out of the marinade and I put it on a soaked cedar board. So there's a couple of tricks here to get this cedar to perform really well for you. One, you want to soak it. Not too long, not too little. About 2 to 3 hours, so it's kind of waterlogged, but then it dries out and it starts to perfume its beautiful cedar flavor into the fish. And then if you put it on the grill and you see any flare-ups, just have some water around to extinguish it. Medium to high heat, get it on the grill. Awesome. This is going to take a little bit of time, then I'll char the broccolini, but that is going to be delicious with the maple and the soya cooked on cedar. It's going to be a perfect day. Good luck. Okay, so it's been, I don't know, maybe about 10-15 minutes. Let's have a look at the fish. Yeah, that's pretty sweet. It looks really good and it smells like cedar. Even the little bit of that wood is giving that salmon that kind of cedar smoke tinge to it. But don't worry, cedar plank's a one-time use, so it should look pretty beat up. And it's getting nice and sticky on the top. It's almost done. It's still really nice and juicy. It's the perfect time to char the broccolini. All about timing. All right, let's do it. Smells so good. That salmon and the truffle vinaigrette and the cedar plank smells so delicious, and this is perfect for broccolini. Just a nice little char. It's still green and it's still really crunchy, but this is what I do. I put it back into the vinaigrette so it stays really nice and flavorful. All right, cedar plank salmon, broccolini. Happy day. The best part about salmon is as soon as it's cooked, you eat it. You don't rest fish, you eat fish hot. Okay, let's do it. A couple pieces of charred broccolini. It's really good. It really transforms when you get those beautiful char marks. And I want you to check out the inside of this salmon. It's so juicy, and there's little smells of cedar, and the miso, maple, soya gives it so much flavor. but look at the inside of that fish. It's cooked perfectly, it's glistening, it's still juicy, it's got little kisses of cedar. It's absolutely perfect. That's such a treat at the cottage. And then a little truffle vinaigrette. The miso and the truffle go so good together. I just put a little bit on the plate, touch of it on the salmon, and that is gonna be a couple of great bites. Cedar plank salmon soaked in maple, soya, charred broccolini. I'm gonna eat this and go for a swim. Looks so good. Just do it.